Hello. Our bodies now contain a lot of man-made nanoparticles. They penetrate through inhalation, ingestion, skin absorption, medical and dental treatments. Indeed, they are everywhere. Air, dust, water, food, medicines, dietary supplements, cosmetics, vaccines, some textiles, household appliances, etc. So it's important to understand their effects. Are they toxic? And if so, why? And how is it that people have been forced to live in an environment polluted by nanoparticles without their consent or even in total ignorance? This first part addresses the latter question, providing an overview of the context in which nanotechnology was developed. We owe the term to Japanese scientist Norio Taniguchi in 1974, who defined nanotech as mainly consisting of the processing of separation, consolidation, and deformation of materials by one atom or one molecule. More generally, it refers to the manipulation and artificial construction of structures on the nanometric scale, namely 1/1,000,000th of a meter, that is 10 to the power minus 9 meter. The diameter of a nanoparticle being of the order of 1 to 100 nanometers. Nano comes from the Greek for dwarf. The actual origin of the term nanoparticle is unknown. Nanoscience is more specifically the study of properties that manifest themselves at the nanometric level, but is closely connected to applications and is therefore a continuation of research geared towards production rather than knowledge. A transformation of the goals of science that we essentially owe to Marie Curie and Fritz Haber. But nanotechnology might not have taken on the importance it has today had it not been for the American engineer Eric Drexler, born in 1955. Nicknamed the godfather of nanotechnology. The very term had been forgotten until he revived it in a 1981 article. There is no reason to believe that he knew Taniguchi's work. His family had fed him science fiction and Rachel Carson's 1962 book Silent Spring, which gave rise to environmentalism. Treating children as adults, in particular by confronting them with adult questions when their brains are far from ready, can have a negative impact on the adults they grow up to be. Indeed, this book was a shock to him. And so it is hardly surprising that while still a teenager, he was deeply influenced by the apocalyptic Malthusian vision of the Club of Rome's 1972 report, Limits to Growth, a vision based on computer simulations, and so unable to take into account all present and future parameters rather than based on predictions justified by diversified empirical evidence. The Club of Rome was founded in 1968 on David Rockefeller's property in Italy. Under these influences, Drexler was quickly led to the colonization of the universe as the solution to the inevitable scarcity of terrestrial resources. He wrote in 1977 that it would be irresponsible not to start immediately on a large-scale program to establish civilization in space. In the meantime, he had joined L5, a company set up in 1975 to promote the idea of space colonization financed by private corporations. This company was certainly well funded since it employed a lobbyist in Washington. It was notably supported by Tim Leary, known for his advocacy of psychedelic drugs, and who admitted to having knowingly been a CIA agent. It was kept afloat in 1980 by a donation from a retired military officer with known intelligence connections. The 1977 article, written to promote the L5 vision, explicitly revived the idea of transhumanism, which Julian Huxley, founder and first director of UNESCO, had put forward in 1957. To make it possible for our transhuman descendants to emerge, technologies needed not only for colonization, but also for the biological transformation of man so that he can leave Earth. And it was in this context that Drexler founded nanotechnology and popularized the term in 1981 in his article, which says that the eventual development of the ability to repair freezing damage has consequences for the preservation of biological materials today, provided a sufficiently long-range perspective is taken. Drexler's work therefore falls within the scope of cryonics. According to Drexler, Prospects of Immortality by Robert Ettinger, the father of cryonics, published in 1962, is one of the most important books of the 20th century. Drexler took out a contract for the cryopreservation of his body with Alcohol Life Extension Foundation. Leary had already done so, and many L5 members were fervent advocates of cryonics. Cryonics relies on cutting-edge technologies and infrastructures to preserve the human body, which requires considerable resources. The growth of the cryonics industry is therefore limited by its ability to access and manage these resources. For Drexler, this means the urgent need to supplement the scarcity of natural resources with a new engineering. This idea was inspired by a speech given by physicist and Nobel Prize winner Richard Feynman in 1959. There's Plenty of Room at the Bottom, in which he describes a field in which little has been done, but in which an enormous amount can be done in principle and with an enormous number of technical applications. More precisely, it's about the problem of manipulating and controlling things on a small scale in a staggeringly small world that is below. In order to, for example, write the entire 24 volumes of the Encyclopaedia Britannica on the head of a pin, which would need us to reduce in size all the writing in the encyclopedia by 25,000 times, by maneuvering things atom by atom. Ultimately, the goal would be to arrange the atoms the way we want, The principles of physics, as far as I can see, do not speak against this possibility. But to attribute any kinship of nanotech to Feynman is a myth created by Drexler. Feynman was not only an outstanding physicist, but also a well-known prankster, and his 1959 audience greeted his remarks with amusement. But it would seem that they later resonated in another mind, that of a Caltech economist, Horace D. Gilbert, about whom it seems difficult to find any information, and who included this otherwise forgettable speech in his 1961 book on miniaturization, where Drexler probably stumbled upon it. Drexler then tried to give reality to a speech that was probably only a joke, and thus to a vision of the macroscopic world as the consequence of a nanoscopic world, rooted in a confusion between reality and fiction. His 1986 book, Engines of Creation, which captured the imagination of millions around the world, put forward nanotechnology as the solution to the depletion of natural resources by making materials and products from the bottom up, that is, by building them up from atoms and molecules, as stated in the White House fact sheet, National Nanotechnology Initiative leading to the next industrial revolution, January 21, 2000. Let's not forget that atoms are still a concept, albeit that has been very satisfactorily confirmed by perceptible and describable effects, but a concept nonetheless, which makes nanotechnology all the more dangerous. Because, like sorcerers' apprentices, we don't know what we're doing when we manipulate this world of the tiny. In 1986, he founded the Foresight Institute to support the development of nanotechnology. Drexler is also a senior research fellow at the Future of Humanity Institute, FHI, part of Oxford University's philosophy department, whose founder and director is Swedish-born philosopher Nick Bostrom, best known for his article, Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?, in which he argues that mankind will develop the ability to create simulations indistinguishable from reality. He co-founded long-termism, a quasi-religious worldview influenced by transhumanism and utilitarian ethics, which asserts that there could be so many digital people living in vast computer simulations millions or billions of years in the future that one of our most important moral obligations today is to take actions that ensure as many of these digital people come into existence as possible. According to the founding document of long-termism, co-authored by Bostrom, one type of existential risk is the possibility of digenic pressures. The word digenics is the opposite of eugenics. Apart from arguing that whites are more intelligent than blacks, the main problem, according to him, is that less intellectually talented people, those with lower IQs, outbreed people with superior intellects. FHI, as well as the Forethought Institute, to which Drexler also belongs, and which also falls within the framework defined by the Club of Rome, are in particular funded by Elon Musk and Sam Bankman-Fried, the mogul of cryptocurrency, who has recently received a 25-year prison sentence for fraud. Following this sentence and Bostrom's eugenist remarks, the FHI was closed in April 2024. In 1989, Drexler was invited to the World Economic Forum in Davos, but has since then been dismissed and his vision discredited. For him, it's about building molecular assemblers, tiny self-replicating machines capable of constructing objects atom by atom. But in his book, Engines of Creation, he also warns of a scenario where a self-replicating machine could destroy the Earth if it replicated uncontrollably, consuming all the Earth's resources in the process. The fear he generated is decried. To quote Nobel Prize-winning chemist Richard Smalley in 2004, "You and people around you have scared our children. While our future in the real world will be challenging and there are real risks, there will be no such monster as the self-replicating mechanical nanobot of your dreams. You are in a pretend world where atoms go where you want because your computer program directs them to go there." Yet Drexler has served to capture the public's imagination, particularly that of net multi-billionaires. Eric Schmidt, one of the founders of Google, was among the first financiers of nanotechnology in its early days, notably through the philanthropic organization Schmidt Futures, involved in global transformation through technology and in the creation of a network of rising leaders in a changing world order. Drexler thus succeeded in placing nanotechnology at the forefront of transhumanism and in persuading, among others, Al Gore in 1992 of the need to develop this engineering for the implementation of the so-called green capitalism stemming from the Rome Report, which focuses on the exploitation of the living rather than of the inert in a perspective which, under the label renewable, exploits present generations supposedly to benefit future generations, a perspective in which, according to the Club of Rome, the world has cancer and the cancer is man. In other words, a perspective in which the enemy to be destroyed is man for the good of the planet, thus justifying this exploitation based on a strict deterministic belief that every stage can be controlled and therefore that the future can be predicted. To quote Mikhail Rocco, founding chairman of the Subcommittee on Nanoscale Science, Engineering and Technology of the U.S. National Science and Technology Council, senior advisor for science and engineering, including nanotechnology, to the National Science Foundation, and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Nanoparticle Research, the best way to predict the future is to create it. But what is renewable about an engineering based on the production of nanomaterials that requires significant amounts of energy and resources? During a speech at Caltech on 21st January 2000, President Bill Clinton advocated for the funding of research in the field of nanotechnology. 3 years later, President George W. Bush signed into law the 21st Century Nanotechnology Research and Development Act. The legislation made nanotechnology research a national priority and created the National Technology Initiative under the influence of the ROCO-led lobby. Given that we're talking about creating the future and that man is public enemy number one, we need to control every step of the way and control humans and living organisms in general. As we shall see, conventional nanotechnology, hence without any Drexlerian fiction, provides unprecedented means for doing so while providing financial capitalism with the rising profits needed to maintain it. Thank you.